Hi, today we are going to be doing the Maha Mritunjaya Yantra. Maha Mritunjaya looks like this. It's an interesting, silver, bright light, silver and blue and gold and white. Healing Yantra. It's quite unique with that 5-pointed star at the center. And 3 rows of petals. Just have a good look there. So this first video is going to be how to draw the gates. So if you already know how to draw the gates for the yantra, go ahead and watch part 2 of the drawing. And we are going to be drawing this. So there's a little preview of today's class. So why are we doing the Maha Mritunjaya Yantra? Well, the mantra from which it comes, every yantra comes from a mantra. Mantra and yantra makes tantra. So the mantra, Maha Mritunjaya, this is a very famous, well-known mantra sound. And it's usually done for healing. 2 things. One is for healing in the body, mind, any mental disturbances, physical issues, any problems that need healing on any level, actually. We will chant the Maha Mritunjaya Mantra. Also, healing in terms of world healing, world peace. So this blue color, healing. Calming, healing, for world peace. Sometimes I love this yantra. Sometimes I have had it by me and it felt very grounding and peaceful, and like it's really holding the space for my body to feel well. So I hope you enjoy having it in your space. It has this kind of timelessness to it. I was taught it originally by Sushma Johari. Sushma is the youngest sister of Harish Johari. Harish Johari is my yantra teacher. And since moving to England, back to England, I have been studying with her sometimes in London. And I always wanted to make this one, and so she taught it to me recently. I've also noticed that a lot of people in Sri Vidya have been working with this same specific yantra for quite some time. So it's definitely a very traditional form and tried and tested. So why else do we work with this yantra? Well, one other reason is liberation. Sometimes it's called the liberation yantra, mantra. So we meditate on it to transcend the body and mind. Sometimes it's actually chanted, or you have this mantra and yantra around someone who's dying. So it could be liberation in this lifetime. It could also be liberation from the process of dying. So you become immortal. You become free. So you transcend mortality. So that's pretty powerful. Different levels of healing. It's also said to be the bearer or the giver of wealth. So many things attributed to this yantra and mantra. I will be chanting the mantra as we go through the class, so you'll get to hear it. But just a little preview is, sometimes it's called the Tryambakam Mantra. Om Tryambakam Yajamahe Sukandem Pushtivardhanam Udvarukamiva Bandhanam Mritur Mukshya Mamrita. May we be so ripe for healing. May we be so ripe for liberation. Oftentimes for healing, we'll chant that mantra 108 times. If you have the mantra, you can chant it while gazing at the yantra. And there's a period of time after somebody has left their physical body, say the pulse has stopped, breath has stopped, but they're still kind of in a transition, where we will actually chant around a body. And we'll keep that chant going even if the body's not there, just with that person in our thoughts, in our heart, for quite a few days after, just to help with that transition, that liberation. So whatever reason you're drawn to this yantra, I hope you enjoy making it. I hope you enjoy using these blues. It's really a whole different palette for me, and I'm happy to share it with you today. If you've already made the gates, join me on part 2, and I'll show you how to make the center. We're going to start with the gates today. The gates are the outside of your yantra, foundation. And what you're going to need is a pencil with a good point, an eraser, essential, and a ruler. A grid ruler is really helpful. See that? Grid, wow. And it can be helpful to have a small card. We're going to use this for a measurement for the gate in a little bit. This is for the Maha Mritunjaya Yantra, the gates. And before we do anything, let's chant the mantra. Om Tryambakam Yajamahe Sukandam Pushtivardhanan Udvarukamiva Bandhanan Mritu Mukshya Mamritata. Om. And we're going to begin by finding the center of our piece of paper. I like to do this with an even longer ruler. So what you can do is put your ruler from side to side, corners, and where your line crosses is the center. So this is approximate. Once you have your center, then you can make a small circle. Open your compass. Compass can be about 1 inch wide. Place that metal point really nicely into the exact spot where that diagonal line crossed. Draw the circle, and then you're going to erase the initial crisscross. Let's go ahead and draw a line straight through the piece of paper. You want your pencil to go into that indentation, left by the compass. Okay, so try it out. Okay, that feels like it goes in. And what I might do now is something called bisecting. I'm going to get you guys ready with this bisecting. Actually using a compass to find the midway mark so I can get a good sense of the horizontal. So this is a little bit of a different technique. You make it a little bit wider than the circle. And I'm looking to see where is the horizontal line going to be. I don't always do it like this. Sometimes I just use the ruler itself. That grid ruler is pretty great. Well, let's see how this is. I am using the grid ruler, see what's lining up, and I'm also using these crisscrosses. So first of all, does my pencil go into that hole? Yes, great. Second of all, does it go through the crisscrosses? I would say well enough. And then you can erase that marking. And one thing that's going to be helpful is to mark the top of your piece of paper. I like to do an Om. So here's the Om lesson. Ah, ooh, mm. every yantra starts with the gates. So what I'd like to show you is how am I dividing this circle into two. I take my compass, has a metal and a lead point. Metal and a lead, and then I'm putting my compass, can you see that? On one outer section of the circle, one quarter. Then I'm going to swing my lead around, out, and out. And then I'm going to put my compass point where my lead was. And then cross that previously drawn line. And I'll go around each of these sections. Then when I have 4 sets of crisscrosses, I will probably take a shorter ruler now, still with a grid line through it. This line doesn't have to go all the way to the edge of your piece of paper. However, try and get the line to go through the crisscrosses, through the center. You'll feel the pencil go into that hole. You know, it's worth getting this first bit right because the whole rest of the yantra rests on this guideline. Then when I'm happy with that, I can actually erase this extra marking and the circle. That was just there as a guide. And then this is a drawing meditation, so I often like to remind you to take a breath, to smile. Something fabulous is going to come. You know, it takes a minute, right? So just stopping, breathing, smiling, greeting the unknown, greeting the next moment. And then widen your compass. It's really up to you how wide you make your compass. I would say leave a little bit of room around the circle that you're now going to draw. And your yantra is going to be contained within that circle. I have one I made before. I'm just going to show you so you can see what we're doing. The circle we're drawing is around the entire yantra. And you want to have some room around the edge, so don't put it too close to the edge of your piece of paper. But really you can do any size yantra you like with this technique of creating yantras, because everything is proportional. Everything relates to itself. Once you feel happy with your circle, you are going to connect the diagonal lines as they meet the circle. Typically, I like to move my paper Once you have your square, take your compass and divide one of the sides again. So let's do this one. Let's do the top. So I'm going to close my compass, put my metal point on one edge, and my lead here I'm putting on the center. And this is us bisecting this section. Bisecting means divide by 2. So we're looking for the halfway mark on the space between the metal and the lead. I'm making a mark, one mark, second mark. Taking my ruler and pencil and going through that crisscross. I'm also using this ruler and I'm going to line up as much as I can this center, this north-south, this west-east line. So now I have a straight line that I want to go through that crisscross, and I really want to be drawing from the edge of that circle to the top of edge of the circle to the edge of the square. Once you have that line, then you have a little shortcut, which is to close your compass Now you have a new measurement. So now you have the half. Remember we were looking for a halfway mark. Now you have it. So now I'm going to mark the other side. I'll go around all the centers of the square, marking that point. And now I'm looking at the other end of the ruler. I'll end up with 8 of these marks. I think when we're drawn to this yantra, healing is happening. We might think consciously, oh, I need healing, or I'm doing this because I'm not feeling well. But I'm pretty sure that if you're drawn to this yantra, some healing is happening on a much more profound level than probably we're even aware of. You know, nothing is just a little something in isolation. Everything is connected to the way your whole organism, your whole being is, literally is, this lifetime. So embracing that mystery is part of this yantra. And it might take you on quite a journey, but it's a nice companion to the journey. So once you have these 8 shorter lines, we're going to connect them. And I still have some awareness of the edge of the main square. Now you have those completed. We're going to divide them one more time. So you'll have the measurement already with your compass. And then there's your metal, there's your lead. So now I'm going to create one more lot of crisscrosses for now. And then switch them around. The metal will be where the lead was. And then I'm going to connect them, but actually I don't have to draw that much. I'm just looking to draw a line that goes from here to around here, through the crisscrosses. So let's put the ruler there. I'm also aware of that central line here. Once you have that mark, go ahead and get your compass. So I made the measurement and now I'm making it on the other side. So I'll go to the centers of the square. Continue to make these marks. Then there's one more measurement you'll do using this compass width. And that is to go to the top where the outer straight line touches the circle. And then you make a mark in towards the square. This is telling us about the size of the bottom of our gates. Now it's time to connect everything. I'm feeling that this is a better one to start with. What I like to do is just see how far up this line is, this little mark. Maybe I can use the lines on my ruler as a guide. So the first thing I'm going to do are these horizontal lines, and I really want to keep it horizontal to the outer square. And so I remember the exact spacing. I'm going to go around and do them all at once. See, sometimes your eye does better with a ruler than with those marks. Then we're going to do the other one that we made a mark of. So now, see your central horizontal line. You want this line to be parallel to it. And you're going to make a little square shape, rectangular shape. I'm lining my ruler up with the center of the yantra, the guidelines, and then I'm looking for those marks I made, either side. All the while thinking about my Tryambakam Mantra and how we're creating this yantra together. This is the last one. So wow, here you go. You have your shape, your basic yantra shape. And the next task, or next step in your meditation, we could say, is to erase everything you don't need. A lot of this yantra creation is in plotting guidelines that then we release. It's like the scaffolding in some ways of a house Once the house is made, you can take the scaffolding down. I want to take away everything that's on the outside of the yantra. So that circle that we created to contain the yantra is going to go. And I might end up erasing a little too much. And then I'm going to come back in with my pencil and ruler and just crisp up the edges. So this has gone pretty well. Hopefully it's gone as well for you today with your first drawing of the gates for everything else to rest on. And you're calling in. It's like you've made a space to call in the deity. In this case, the Maha Mritunjaya is actually a form of Shiva. So this is very much a more subtle form. Not so earthy as all these goddesses that I often like to work with. Shiva is like the absence of form. So it's kind of interesting that we have to meditate on a form of Shiva to feel and experience the absence of form. Formlessness. It's like, what is that space of perfection where everything is absolute, everything is complete, whole, there is no illness or imbalance in your system. Once I have that erased, I'll take my ruler again, as mentioned, and I just go back through it. I feel like this really helps you see what you're working with. Helps you see your form to contain the formless quality of Shiva. See, why it's important to have the connection with the formless is we're beginning again. Healing is about beginning again, dissolving that which is stuck, that which is not in the right position, that which is not flowing well, and then allowing a new conduit, a new pathway to be created in your being so that there is now an absence of stagnation, blockage, or dis-ease. And remember, dis-ease can happen on so many levels that it's pretty nice for all of us to work with this yantra. So without a space, you can't actually create anything. Without a space in the belly, you couldn't create a baby. Without a space in the mind, you couldn't create a thought. This is where the idea of Shiva and meditation comes in. Just to bring space to the mind, emptiness. So that you may be more present with the source of creation. So we're going to have a nice crisp outline. This is the last side, just firming it up. To create the gates, the inner gates, again I'm going to show you my previously drawn one. There are 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, to create 2 channels. Eventually, they're going to be painted. So eventually, that's going to be gold, and that's going to be yellow. And as we know, that's all going to be blue. So now we're going to create the channels. And I like to mark it out. You know, when I was with Harish Johari, he always had me do this thing with a card. I don't know why. I don't think he taught many of his students this. But for some reason I needed it. And as I am teaching you today, maybe you also needed it. So let's see. That looks like I could do that. All right. So what happens with this card is I make a measurement. And it's telling me the even width of the gates. So I have 3 lines. One of these lines is going to be landing on the outer edge of the yantra. And then I make a very light mark. Because just like before, we didn't always exactly use these guide marks. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be using these yet. This is giving me a sense of space for the gold line and the yellow line. And I tend to go around doing all the vertical ones. And then I turn my yantra around and do all the horizontal ones. It really doesn't take a minute. Let's see how I edit this. Sometimes I time lapse it, but I just kind of want to show you that it doesn't take long. We're just making a mark on every single edge so that when I get to draw, I'll have some marks to work with. So there we have it. That's one direction. And then I'll show you the other one. So I probably just have my piece of paper. A lot of this work is just about light. You know, if you can see clearly in one direction, you don't have shadows, then just stay with it. Just turn the paper. And then there are a couple of ways of connecting these lines so that you end up with 2 channels around the entire yantra. See, it really doesn't take too long. So that's that. And the next thing will be to connect them. So I'll put my arm at the top. I'll take my ruler. Then I bring it down towards me, keeping it parallel to the edge. And then I'll draw a line parallel. Then I'll bring it down again, the ruler. So the main thing I'm looking at here is this word parallel. And what I might do, what I sometimes do, and what I will need later anyway, is just to make one corner. So turn the paper. And then I have a corner done. See how this corner is finished now? Once I have a corner that's finished, I'm going to draw a light circle. Light meaning I'm not going to press too hard. So it's going to be erased. It just touches that corner. And then I'll continue around with my gates. And then once you're done drawing the gates, you're welcome to erase some of those marks that you can still see that you probably don't want to see anymore. So I'm still looking through the middle of my yantra, the center of my yantra and the center of my ruler. And every now and then I'll really take a good breath. And smile. Today I'm thinking about Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist, Vietnamese Zen Buddhist, who really was talking a lot about smiling, which is really to say, how can we shift our own mood and not feel that our mood is dependent on external circumstances, our happiness. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. We're going to come back and join everybody in part 2, and we'll create the center of the Maha Mritunjaya Yantra together.